Big words in there. You want to try it, Allie? My little children. Huh? These things I write unto you. That you sin not. Alright. My little children, these things I write unto you, that ye sin not. And if any man sin, we have an advocate. That's the first word. Everybody say this word with me. Advocate. Try to say it again. I only had like 3 people say it with me. Ready on my signal? Advocate. Good. Once more. Advocate. So, if any man sin, we have an advocate with the Father, Jesus Christ, the righteous. Now, righteous is an easier word for us. Let's say that second word, righteous. Righteous. No, advocate's the first word. If any man sin, we have an advocate with the Father, Jesus Christ, the righteous. And I'm not quoting, and he is the propitiation. Now, that's a really big word. Can we say that word together? Repeat after me. Propitiation. All right, I'm going to say it, and then I'm going to point to you. Ready? I'm going to say it. Propitiation. Propitiation. That's a really hard word to say. It's hard for me to say, and I've been saying it for a long time. So, propitiation. I lost my place. We have an advocate with the Father, Jesus Christ the righteous, and he is the propitiation for our sins, and not for ours only, but for the sins of the whole world. Okay, so we have 3 words to learn today in our lesson. How many of you have ever seen your shadow? How many of you have ever seen your shadow? Can you see your shadow right now?
No.
Is there a little bit of a shadow? Do we always have a shadow?
No.
We kind of do, really. We always have a shadow. Sometimes it's not. James? Help me out, James. And listen to me. We always have a shadow, even if we can't see where it's going. It just depends. What's the easiest way to see a shadow? Is if the sun is really bright, then we can see the shadow really easy. But we always have a shadow, even if it's not very light out. Now, a shadow, every one of us, our shadow is kind of like, I'm going to use a big word, like our influence. Okay? So, sometimes we have a strong influence on somebody, on other people. Sometimes we don't have a strong influence on people, but we always are influencing people. We're always doing things that other people see. Have you ever, sometimes you might think, I don't think anybody sees this, but somebody knows. Somebody's watching. Somebody's looking at you, and they're thinking about what you do, and it affects them, and that's our influence. So we want to have the best influence possible, and the best way to do that is to be as close to Jesus as possible, because he's the brightest. Now, John, do you know who John is? This John right here? He's the one who wrote this book. He wrote that book too. So, John, you can stop talking again. Yep, you got the right spot. John is the man that God used to write the Gospel of John, whereas the verse that Ian was saying. And he also wrote the letter of John, the first letter of John, and then he wrote a second letter. That's right after the first one, 2 John. And he wrote a third one. And then he also wrote the book of Revelation. So John wrote 5 books in the Bible. Do you know who John's brother was? Anybody know who John's brother was? Do you know who John's brother was? Is that your name? Yes. James and John were brothers. Do you know who John's friend was? Anybody know any of John's friends' name? Who? Peter was one of his friends. Yes. Jesus, he walked with Jesus when he was here on the earth. You can remember, so he had Peter and James and John and Andrew and Thomas. A bunch of young men followed Jesus. They were his disciples. John was one of his disciples. And John wrote this book to us so that we could know, listen please, John wrote the book of 1 John to us so that we could know that we're saved. And when we're saved, we can have fellowship with God the Father and with Jesus Christ, his Son. That's what our verse says. Truly, our fellowship is with the Father and with his Son, Jesus Christ. Now, in these verses, James, please don't play with the Bible, okay? I gave you the Bible to look at the verse. If you either sit it still or don't play with it. Our verses said that we have an advocate with the Father, Jesus Christ the righteous, and he is the propitiation for our sins. So we want to learn what these big words are. We don't normally use the word advocate. So I'm going to describe for you what that is. Once, John knew what it was. In the very end of Jesus' life, how did Jesus die? He was crucified. And we don't know exactly how he was crucified, but he was up there on the cross. And you know that Jesus' mother was there watching him get crucified? She was. She was there. And you know someone else who was there watching Jesus be crucified? John. John was there. And while Jesus was on the cross, he looked down at his mother and he said, "Woman," talking to his mother, "look at your son." And he wasn't talking about looking at himself. He was referring to John. And then he said to John, he said, "John, behold," or "look at your mother." What he was doing, Jesus was telling his mother that John would be her helper for the rest of his life. If she ever had to do some business in town with the city officials, John would be there to help her. So you know that what John was for Mary? John was Mary, Jesus' mother's advocate. That's what the word advocate means. So if John told us that Jesus, we have an advocate with the Father, who's an advocate? What does an advocate do? He helps. So, if you need anything from God, who can help you with your request to God? Jesus, because he's our, what's the first word? Advocate. So, if we have sinned, what did our verse say? Our verse says that John wrote these things so that we wouldn't sin. But then he said, but if we sin, see this boy right here? He's sad. You know why he's sad? Because he sinned. And when he sinned, he doesn't feel like he has fellowship with the Father. But what can we do when we have sinned? What's he doing? He's praying. And he's praying, and he's praying to his helper. Who's his helper? Jesus. He's praying to Jesus, and Jesus is helping him. And Jesus will help all of us. When we sin, we need to say to Jesus that we don't like that sin. We're sorry that we sinned, and we don't want to sin anymore. And Jesus takes our request and our confession, and he talks to God for us because he's our helper. Jesus is our helper, and that's the same thing as that first word. What's the first word? Advocate. So Jesus is our advocate, and that means he's our helper, right? So we have an advocate or a helper with the Father, Jesus Christ, and our second word is righteous. Jesus Christ, the righteous. Now, does anybody know what it means to be righteous? We see this word a little bit more than advocate. Somebody, what comes to your mind? What comes to your mind? What do you think of when I say Jesus Christ the righteous? Don't say it out loud. So Ian says brave. Whoa. Ian says brave. James, what comes to your mind? Rich. Okay. Cody, do you have something come to your mind? Not today? Eliza, what comes to your mind? What? They don't sin. Somebody who's righteous doesn't sin. Anybody here? Do you have anything come to your mind when I say righteous? Jesus Christ the righteous? So, Allie? The leader? Okay. So, Hayden. Yes? Nice. Jesus the nice. Okay? So those are all different ideas. Mostly what Jesus Christ the righteous means is that he is perfect. How many of you are perfect? I shouldn't put my hand up either. Nobody's perfect. Nobody's perfect. There's one person who's perfect. Who's the one person who lived on the earth who is perfect? What's his name? Jesus. Jesus. So, Jesus is perfect. And you know what? When Jesus saves us, he says he wants us to be like him. So if Jesus is righteous and we're saved, what are we supposed to be? Righteous. That's right. And so we should work hard to live like Jesus lived. So this person here, he realizes that he is not righteous. But when we ask the Lord to help us, and what is that? If Jesus is our helper, he's our advocate, right? So when we ask him to help us, he can help us to live a righteous life. So we have Jesus is our helper, and he's righteous, and then that really big word. Does anybody remember the third word? The really big word? Just wait. Anybody remember it? Remember what sound it started with? Courage? No. Cody? It started with a P. That's right. Okay. Allie? Amberlynn? Okay, it was propitiation. Remember that? Let's try to say that together. Propitiation. Wow, that's a long one. Ready once more? Propitiation. So, what does the word propitiation mean? I'm not even going to ask you what you think of when you hear that word. So, propitiation. You know what? Remember I said that Jesus was on the cross and John was there and Jesus' mother was there? When Jesus was on the cross, he died on the cross and made it so that God was satisfied with everything. In the beginning, God had fellowship with man, right? Remember in the Garden of Eden, he created Adam and Eve and they had fellowship together? And our verse talks about fellowship, right? But then something happened, and God and Adam couldn't fellowship anymore. What happened so that God and Adam could not fellowship anymore? He ate from the tree, and that was... What was it when he ate from the tree?
Sin.
You guys, go ahead.
Sin.
It was sin, right? And so they sinned, Adam sinned, Eve sinned, and they could no longer have fellowship with the Father. And so everybody that sins cannot have fellowship with the Father. So no one is allowed to fellowship with the Father. For a long time, people would sacrifice animals, right? They would sacrifice animals so that they could pray to God. But as soon as they sacrificed that animal and went out and did something else wrong, what happened? They had sinned again, right? So they had to sacrifice an animal again. But when Jesus came and he died on the cross, he satisfied God forever. So that everyone, just like we say each week, everyone that turns from their sins and believes on Jesus can have their sins forgiven, they can have eternal life, and they can have fellowship with God. How can we have fellowship with God if we're a sinner? We can't. But because Jesus is our advocate, he satisfies God's anger against us. So, John wrote these things. He said, I write these things unto you that you sin not. But if any man sin, we have
Advocate.
right? Say it together.
An
An advocate. And an advocate is a helper. And who's our advocate? Jesus Christ, the... No, what's the second word? The righteous. And he is the, what's the third word? Propitiation. What does propitiation mean? It means he satisfied, the satisfaction. He satisfied God. God said, no one can have fellowship with me until this happens. And he's the one that satisfied God. And now all of us can have fellowship with God if we trust in, believe on Jesus, and trust in what he has done for us. And so, we have fellowship with the Father, right? Truly, our fellowship is with the Father and with his Son, Jesus Christ. So if you're saved, you can have fellowship with the Father. God wants us to live for him. He wants us to act like him. We're supposed to live righteous lives because Jesus lived a righteous life. And we should be able to see things in our lives that people can tell we're Christians. What was that verse that you said from John? For God so loved the world. Let's just stop with that. For God so loved the world. Did Jesus love people?
Yes.
Yes. And so if we have believed on Jesus and we're supposed to live like Jesus, we should also love people, right? We should love people and help them and do good to them. Sometimes it's easy to be mean to people, isn't it? It is. But would Jesus be mean to people?
No.
No. And so when we're mean to people, are we acting like Jesus would act?
No.
No, we're not. And so we could probably think of some people right now that we've been mean to that we need to stop being mean to. If we have fellowship with the Father, if we are living like Jesus, we need to stop being mean to certain people, right?
Yes.
And you should think about that, and then you should determine to do it.